Mariposa County, the home of Yosemite, is rich in history and exquisite beauty. It is a delightful little place full of warm, down-home people that welcome visitors from all over the world to come to see their backyard. The Mariposa County Visitors Bureau is privileged to be able to help you visit us through this program.
When we reach the verdant valley and the winding mountain stream, see great cliffs and waterfalls pass in review. Find the skies by day all sunny and at night bedecked with stars, then we know that we are in Yosemite.
Well, here we are in Yosemite National Park. We're on the Yosemite Valley Floor. And Ranger, correct me if I am wrong here, but I have received figures that tell me that about 4 million visitors come to Yosemite National Park every year. And of those 4 million, over 90% of them never leave the valley floor. They never really get to see all the other wonders that are Yosemite National Park.
You are correct.
So they come here in tour buses and automobiles. They get out and they walk around the valley floor. They look up at the beautiful rocks and cliffs and waterfalls, and then they leave.
Exactly. And it's too bad, but there's certainly a lot in the valley.
Yes, there is a lot to see here. And one of the things there is to see here on the valley floor is this wonderful Yosemite Museum. And this is not just your average old run-of-the-mill national park museum, is it?
No, this is the oldest museum in the national park system. We have over 1 million artifacts here, everything from paintings to old National Park Service uniforms, some wonderful things. We've got an exhibit right now, for example, showing Ansel Adams photographs. There's a lot of great stuff in the museum.
So this is the oldest museum in the entire national park system?
That is correct.
Is it the largest?
We have the most artifacts, and this building that houses it was built in 1924 and is a historic building.
Wow. Well, as wonderful as this museum is, you know we're not here to see what's in the museum. We do things a little differently. We're going to walk right through that door, go right through the museum, because we want to spend the afternoon on the other side of the museum, see what's out back of the museum.
Okay, sounds great.
Is that okay with you?
That's just fine.
There is something back there for us to see, isn't there?
There
We
is.
heard there was something very special back there to see.
There is indeed.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
We're heading through the museum. We're going in the front door, going right in the back door, out the back door, to end up at our final destination.
Okay.
Take it easy, Scott. Okay, we're inside and we're walking right through the hallway here, right out to the back of the museum, just like we said we were going to do. And here to greet us, bet you're our tour guide, aren't you?
How are you?
I'm Huell Hauser.
I'm Ranger Bob Fry.
Nice to meet you, sir. Let's just start right off the bat. Where are we? What's back behind the museum?
This is a demonstration Indian village. The real village was some distance over this direction, but houses and ritual structures have been built back here. So this is a little path where people can take a self-guiding trail and they can see somewhat how the Indians lived in Yosemite Valley here.
Now let's talk just a minute about the Indians in Yosemite Valley. Which Indians traditionally lived here? Were there a lot of Indians here in the valley at one time?
This was a village of perhaps 200 to 300 people. They called themselves Ahwaneechees. The name of their valley is Ahwahnee, and they were not a tribe, but they spoke the Miwok language. And
So there were never more than 200?
200 or 300, that's about it.
Gosh, I would have thought they would have been all over this valley floor.
But living the style that they did, hunting and gathering and trading with others, that's about as much as this valley that's about 8 miles long and about a mile wide could support.
Really?
Yes.
All right, now what have we got here? Where did these structures come from?
These are bark structures. Some people think they look like teepees. They're called umachas.
Can we walk over here? Now this is made of bark.
This is made of cedar bark. When the cedar trees die, or if they get burned and fall down, the bark comes loose in a couple of years. So they're simply stacked up with some poles inside, some support poles. They didn't build fires inside, but outside were the fires, and inside where they slept or where they stored material in the summertime.
Would they have used the same ones season after season, or would they have continually built new ones?
You have to reconstruct them about every 3 years.
And you've got 2 more over here.
Yes, this is, and then some more over in this other direction as well.
Would they have been clustered like that?
In this, this village might represent a winter situation where many of the extended families would come back and stay here for the winter. So there might be more structures, but there could be others in the summertime where they took up residence in other parts of the valley.
Boy, there's one right here. It really just blends in with the terrain, doesn't it?
It's quite natural with all the leaves and all on side, coming down on top.
And it looks like it might have been warm in the wintertime.
It is quite warm. But you know, this is a rather mild environment. This elevation here at 4,000 feet is about as high as human beings could live year-round. And
you have a lot of kids coming through here, don't you?
Oh,
A lot of school groups.
lots of school groups, even in the summertime.
Now look at this.
Now this is the roundhouse. This is the ceremonial roundhouse which is still working today. It's a dedicated roundhouse. And there are 4 big oak posts that hold up this whole structure. And this has to be reconstructed too, about probably every dozen years or so.
Now, is this little thing over here connected with the roundhouse?
This is a sweat lodge, and it's built on the same plan that this one is, with 4 little posts inside.
And would it have had grass on it like that on the top?
In fact, this one would also have soil and sod on the top of it. But when we put dirt on this several years ago, the kids ran up and down the roof, and it was too unsafe. When we took the dirt off, then they left it alone.
All right, now the sweat house is basically just exactly what it implies, right?
Yes, and sweating for these people was really almost a spiritual process, because they not only cleanse the outer body, but you're working on yourself. And it was a serious matter. And they wouldn't let you in. There's a sweat master there, and he wouldn't let you in unless you were in good standing.
Really? And what does good standing mean?
Well, it meant that you were serious, that you weren't frivolous, and you had been honest with your relatives. Everybody here in the valley is a relative.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get in this roundhouse? Is this the entrance?
There are 2 entrances. This is the west entrance here, where the sun comes up, and this is where all the people enter. But there is a back entrance which is used by the dancers and by a few other people.
So this was set up to deal with the way the sun rose and set every day.
Yes, a lot of structures throughout the country, other types of, like hogans and others, they all met the rising sun in the morning.
Now there's a sign here that says we can't go in right now. Is this used still?
Yes,
on special occasions?
It's still used, and on certain occasions when we do invite, I have permission from the local council to take people in if they're serious. They can't take pictures. And
so we couldn't take any pictures in there because it is a religious place.
Well, yes, but in the old days it was also used in the wintertime when it was cold, and people could sit around the fire and work.
But why wouldn't we be able to take pictures?
Well, it's just considered disrespectful because it is used for dancing, and the dancing that's done here is done throughout the night, and it's considered power dancing, whereas more social dancing would be done outside here with women. See, the dancing is done with 4 men around the fire, with a drummer over to the side and a chanter, or somebody who's singing, and that's all men. The women.
Have you ever seen this?
Oh yes, yes. I've been invited in. A great privilege.
Wow.
I've seen over 200 people just sitting all the way back next to the wall. I've seen healings going on in here, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Now this looks like this looks fairly new here.
This reflects the turn of the century when Indian people came back to the valley to work for the hotel people, and they used old lumber and cast-off pieces that they could find, sometimes 10. They call it a chief's house. We use it for, they use it for dressing now and preparing for some of their dancing.
You know, it has all these sides to it, the way it's constructed. It's got like,
it's like
8 sides, 12 sides to it.
Sort of like a roundhouse in itself.
Yeah.
In fact, there are roundhouses like this one that are constructed like this, only much larger.
Now this whole area looks like an area that would have been perfect for the Indians to live in. This setting here.
Yes, it's a nice setting. However, in the main part of the oak grove, which is about a quarter of a mile over here, it was much more natural. And this is the sunny side of the valley. You see, this is when the sun in the wintertime, when the sun is below the cliff over here, it's very cold on that side of the valley.
So they would have lived over on this side of the valley.
Yes.
These rocks. Now there's a little plaque here.
This plaque is commemorates the first interpretation that was done in the Park Service. It started in 1920, and it just indicates a phase of the understanding that education is an important part of preserving the parks as well as the scenery itself. Yeah.
Let's talk about the numbers again. The Native Americans were here. Then were they driven out? Did they leave on their own?
They were driven out in 1851 and really didn't reassemble themselves to live the traditional lifestyle after that. But as soon as the hotels began to be established, starting in 1858 and 59, they dribbled back and they had their own village in their own sites, which really didn't correspond to the traditional ones. And they never really lived traditionally after that either. They caught fish, they hunted for the hotels, they did other chores, and the women were able to sell baskets to people that were here as visitors.
Are there any Native Americans living?
There are at least 600 or 700 or 800 living in this county, and they work here in the valley. There are 2 or 3 families work for the Park Service. Some of them work for the company, we call it the concessionaire, and they can trace their lineage back. It's amazing when I talk to them. They're much better than I am with my family, but everybody knows everybody, and it's all interconnected.
And do they still come and use this area for ceremonies?
I've seen marriages here. And as I said, healings and other things. Every year we have a Trans-Sierra walk over the old Mono Trail. It was just finished last week. And they have big potlucks here. And so they get together. And not only the Miwok peoples on this side, since there's been a combination of Paiute on the other side of the mountains, plus these, they've mixed up. We have other groups as well.
I'm just looking over your shoulder over here. There's another. These structures are kind of hidden in among the trees, some of them.
Yes, we try to. Well, this nice open area here is also used for dancing if it's, women and children and others. And for
now this says like Miwok Cabin.
Well,
and there's an actual picture of it. Is that a real picture?
That's a real picture of one that was here, and this is a reconstruction of that. Here are the old riven shakes that are here, sugar pine shakes, and old cast-off lumber. Here's a cauldron, and it was commandeered to use. Anything that was cast off from the other culture that was here, they took advantage of. So
this is amazing right here, because you're right, it traces the evolution of the living condition.
A lot of people when visitors come here, expect the Indians to act like movies, the movie Indians. And really, most of the people that are here remember the 150 years ago. They're not about to reconstruct the 200 or 300 years ago. After all, they were hunters and gatherers and traders, and that kind of lifestyle wouldn't be appropriate, especially in the national park. They can't hunt the fish. They can't poison the fish, and they can't.
What do you mean poison the fish?
Well, they use poison to get their fish. One of the ways of getting fish was to rub poison in the water from a soap root. We have it growing all around here, and shooting deer with bows and arrows. Trapping squirrels, trapping birds and other things, is not done in the park. So the Indian life here is really not the way some people expect it to be in the Southwest or other places like that. This is much older than the Southwest area.
Boy, I'm just looking up at what we're looking up at up here. This is spectacular.
Can you imagine being a native person growing up here as children and having names for all these peaks and all these cliffs, and they all have special significance, many of them with very personal significance and with stories behind them, like Lost Arrow, you know, that was shot by a man, and then he slipped as he shot it, and the arrow didn't land down here, and the gods turned it into a pinnacle, a stone pinnacle.
So all of these old Indian stories are still very much alive.
Yes.
They've been preserved.
Yeah. El Capitan, the biggest of all the rocks, was named after an insignificant creature, Totucanula, a measuring worm, because that was the only animal that could climb the rocks. And everybody laughed at it, but it could inch its way up, and then they didn't laugh at it anymore. It's a good story to tell children, you know. Don't worry if you're small. You can do great things.
Well, look who we found over here sitting under a tree, working away. Julia, could you introduce yourself to everybody?
My name is Julia Parker, and I have been a weaver for many years, and my teachers have all been ladies from the Yosemite area, Yosemite Miwok and Yosemite Paiute. I'm intermarried with a grandson of the great Lucy Tellis, who was a great basket weaver, and I have 4 children, and I have 13 grandchildren.
Oh my gosh.
And I have 2 great-grandchildren.
Now, are you related to the original peoples who lived here hundreds of years ago?
Am I related to the people that lived here hundreds of years ago? No. I always say that I'm exotic because exotic, I think, is pretty neat. We're a little bit different.
So those people really, it's very hard to, they were not a tribe as such. That's what the ranger told us.
Well, we can say a tribe or people, whatever, you know, whatever we choose to refer them as people, you know.
Right. Now, you've stayed here in the park, and you demonstrate for people who visit the museum this wonderful craft, this art that has probably been passed down from generation to generation. Who taught it to you?
Who taught me how to weave these beautiful baskets today? My husband's great aunts, Carrie Bethel and Minnie Mike, helped me with my basket. And of course his grandmother taught me how to use baskets, but they were my teachers. And then as I learned to weave baskets, I began to become more curious about what they were using. And so I would go to the Ahwaneechee lounge, and I would sit there in the lounge and look at the designs, because I didn't know how to put a design in a basket, and just sit there and think, now how did you do that? You know, how did you do that? And so it was just a matter of placing your colors in different areas to form, of course, different designs. Like,
look at all of this.
Like this one here.
Oh, this is beautiful.
See, that one I was learning how to do the points. And so all of my baskets have stories to tell. So that was learning how to get the points, and I think I finally got the point in that one. Okay.
Now, how long would it take you to do something like that?
Well, with changing to the colors all the time, gosh, maybe one circle might take me about 9 or 10 hours.
So you got to have patience to do this.
Well, everyone says we need patience, but let's look at the word patience. Doesn't it mean that you're doing something you don't like to do?
Oh, so you could sit here all day. It wouldn't make any difference to you. You're doing something you love to do.
That's right, and I feel very privileged at being able to sit here and to give the story of the first of my husband's people.
Do people ask good questions? Do they ask intelligent questions? Or do most people who come here really just don't know much about this history? We don't know much about it, do we?
Well, let's see. About the question, I believe the most asked question is, how long does it take to make a basket?
Oh, I've already asked that one.
Yeah. You're just like the visitor, and that's okay.
And what's the second most asked question before I go on with this interview?
And are you a real Indian?
I didn't ask that one.
And what tribe are you?
Mm-hmm.
And
but people come wanting to learn,
yes,
don't they?
Do. I feel in my years of working with people here in the valley that each and every one, you know, we can look at them like maybe curious, but then again, I don't like to use the word curious. I think that they really want to learn about the first people in the valley here, and like I say, it's a privilege for me to be able to help them understand, even if I have to repeat the question about, you know, how long does it take to make a basket. One time I counted it, I think about 70 times during the day,
Oh
you know,
my gosh.
but that's
So
all right.
Embarrassed.
No, you shouldn't be.
But these are so beautiful, and I know people at home are going to be thinking the same thing, is how much work does it take? Now, will you use this? Will you sell this? Does this have a practical use for it now?
Oh yes, it'll be an oblong shaped basket for collecting berries, and I didn't really learn to weave baskets to market them or to sell them. I felt that it was more important to learn what went into them and the history of making baskets. I do put them on show, and if you know, if I can get a blue ribbon somewhere, fine. If not, it doesn't really matter. But as far as marketing them, no, I think that other weavers that I know who are not as fortunate as I to be able to sit here and talk to you and to do the basket, that they're the ones that should get the prices for their work.
And you know what? As many years as you've been doing this, I bet you're still learning and growing as you do this, aren't you?
That's right. Every day I come out or I pick up my basket, I learn something. And it's always been in the back of my mind that, how did you do this? When I'm sitting out here thinking, how did you do this? But then again, if you can do it, so can I. But we have to search a little harder for our right plants and fibers that we use.
Which these are all the plants and the fibers. And you're basically sitting here in this beautiful Yosemite Valley doing something that would have been done hundreds of years ago by Native Americans who used to call this place home.
That's right. The home of the Ahwaneechees, people of a deep grassy meadow. And when I sit out here, you know, we're sitting on a very, very, I call a very special spot because they once walked here and sat here. And lots of times when I'm sitting here, I think about them. And I sometimes forget I'm in today's world, and I think about, oh, you know, how it was to sit underneath a tree like this and to do my work here, you know, and just be very thankful and of what, you know, what they left for us. You know, they left a legacy of a work, of a master workmanship. You know, they didn't need to know that 2 and 2 made 4. They could put a straight line in a circle. And when I think about the education of these basket weavers, they really did probably had only maybe an 8th grade education, maybe not even that. While my education, I've had 7 years public school training and then 5 years of Indian boarding school training where they said, don't do baskets. Don't be what you were born into. That's another story.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't listen to them at the Indian school, because you are sitting here and sharing with the thousands of people who come through here every day this wonderful legacy. You are continuing this legacy, and we are so glad that you have shared some of it with us this afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us.
But you know, it's not me, it's everybody who comes in here who is giving us support. Every person who passes here, it's just not me. And it's all of you, all of the visitors who come in here and ask questions. And I owe them a debt of gratitude, too, for wanting to learn.
Wanting to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm just going to sit here very quietly, and we'll watch you do what you do so well.
Right now we're getting a little pattern in the basket. So we'll try to get it in there. And hopefully it'll come through. See, we can't get mad at our baskets either. See, you don't want to get mad at it. It won't work for you. There we go. And I found out that a stitch in time makes 9. See, there's a beginning end and there's an ending end too in our when we put our fiber through the basket. And I think we got the design. Just about right.
Mariposa County, the home of Yosemite, is rich in history and exquisite beauty. It is a delightful little place full of warm, down-home people that welcome visitors from all over the world to come to see their backyard. The Mariposa County Visitors Bureau is privileged to be able to help you visit us through this program.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.